and welcome to a new vlog and video from on board of the Mein Schiff Relax. We are taking a look at the last 2 days, days 7 and 8. We will be on the island of Lanzarote, and on the last day we will be back on Gran Canaria. From there I'm heading home then. Here you can see our route, and we are starting early in the morning with another nice breakfast because I have booked another excursion, so I'm straight away heading to my excursion coach. Today it is not a jeep tour, it's a hike again, but first we are leaving the capital of the island, Arecife, and we are heading to the Cueva de los Verdes, which is a lava tube that we are going to explore with our German-speaking guide, who also has a license to show us the Cueva de los Verdes. Our ship is the biggest building on the island today, and that's not even a joke, it's actually the truth, because there is a famous artist on the island called Cesar Manrique, and he had big influence on the look of the islands. In the year 1968 he established a law together with the president that says that no building should be higher than 3 stories or the height of a grown palm tree. Most buildings on the island are white, and they also have special colors, for example for the doors, so he wanted to make sure that the island has its own look, and he also wanted to stop mass tourism. Here we are at the Cueva de los Verdes, the lava tube. It's a cave that we're gonna go inside now. It's a very impressive cave. It's one of the longest lava tubes in the world, created around 3,000 years ago when a volcano nearby erupted and the lava was flowing towards the ocean. And the lava on the ground is getting cold quite soon, but below the ground the lava was still flowing and left this huge, around 7 kilometers long tube, which makes it one of the longest lava tubes in the world. And we can take a look at a short part of it, and we're gonna go inside. So it is very, very impressive because you can see how much power nature has. At some points the cave is pretty big and high, at other points it's rather small and narrow, so it is a quite interesting walk through the lava tube. And it is also designed by Cesar Manrique and a friend of him. They made a special light show, they made special lighting for the cave, also special sound effects and a few surprises within the cave. Here we are at the end of the tour at a big hall where you can even have concerts. So it is a very, very impressive and absolutely worth seeing. So I can highly recommend visiting the Cueva de los Verdes. But it's not the end of our tour, because we still have the hike to do, which is the main part of the excursion. So we're now slowly heading out of the cave again, getting back to our coach, which will now brings us to a small village called Haria. Also the bus ride is quite scenic because of the very distinctive landscape of Lanzarote. We can see fields here, and the fields look very different than in other countries. Of course the lava grounds are very good for growing fruit, but it is a quite dry island, so agriculture is very different here, and also it looks different. We're now heading into the Valley of the 1000 Palm Trees, and here we are in the quite narrow village of Haria. Here we are leaving our coach, and we are then starting a hike through that valley of 1000 palm trees. It actually means that there are around 1000 palm trees in that valley, which is more than on the rest of the island, but it does not mean that it is a completely green valley, because that's just not possible with the amount of rain here on this island. But it is a very, very beautiful part of the island. And we are now hiking up to a viewing point called Mirador Rincon de Haria. From there we have a fantastic view down the cliff, and to other parts of the island we have a big dune area. You can see the beaches and some other villages, so it is a very, very beautiful viewing point. And we're hiking up there on a not too steep way, so it was a quite easy hike in the beginning. We had a huge group, but that was no problem because the way is so simple, you cannot get lost, and everybody was just simply hiking in their own speed. And here we are at the viewpoint, and you can see this breathtaking view. We can see the dunes in the background, we can see a few villages, we can of course see the ocean. So this was for sure the most beautiful part of this excursion. It was very, very nice, and we had a couple of minutes here to take some nice pictures and videos, taking a little break. But that's not the end of the hike, of course. We are continuing through the valley. As you can see, it is a rather dry landscape. In the background we can see the ocean on the other side of the island, and below we can see the village of Haria and all those palm trees. And we are still on a quite easy path. It's even accessible by car. It's a quite wide path, not too steep, so it's quite easy. But in the end it's getting a bit more difficult when we are heading back down again. Then we are on a small path, as you can see here, which is a bit more demanding, but still I would say this was the easiest of my excursions and also the easiest hike I had with TUI cruises so far. But it was still a very, very nice hike and a very nice excursion, and we also had a very good guide who was explaining a lot about the island. Here we can see a museum which is at a former house of Cesar Manrique, and here you can see even more palm trees. So here you can see what you might expect if you hear the word Valley of 1000 palm trees. And we are now back in the bus, and we're now heading back to the ship, back to Arecife, again through the narrow streets of Haria, and then we're following the main roads back to the capital of the island, Arecife. On our way back we learned a bit more about Cesar Manrique. We are also coming past a roundabout where he had a deadly car accident where he sadly died. And even today at this roundabout there is a little monument, and you can see a cross on the side where this accident happened, just a couple of meters away from his foundation. Here we are at this roundabout, and just a few minutes later we're back in the city, and we can see the biggest building of the island at the moment, the Mein Schiff Relax again. And here we can see her, and we can also see her from the side a bit better. And the bus is bringing us now directly back to the ship, still in time for a quick lunch. And of course then I also wanted to head back into the city because I didn't see anything of Arecife yet. So after a short lunch break it's time to get back off the ship to discover the city of Arecife. The way to the city center from our docking location is not too far, and in general the city of Arecife is pretty nice. They have a lot of art in the city, a lot of decorations because it was almost Christmas time. I was traveling in November, so they already set up the Christmas decoration, and that was quite interesting to walk through a city with blue skies, 20 degrees and more, and seeing Christmas decoration here like this snowman. So that was quite funny. But I think it's quite nice to be here in the winter time and Christmas time. I think it looks quite nice when you're walking around when the sun sets and you still have 20 degrees, but there are Christmas lights everywhere. So I think that might be pretty beautiful. I think I will be here back a bit closer to Christmas time one day. Of course, I also made some local friends as always. That also has to be part of exploring a city for me. Especially because I knew there will not be that much to do in Arecife because it was again siesta, so most shops were closed at the time I was there. But still I wanted to see what the city looks like. There are always a few shops that are still open, but I would recommend just walking through the city and also walking along the coastline, because there is, for example, the castle that you can see in the background. There's also quite interesting island which I didn't visit because I did not have enough time. So there is still a lot to do here in the city of Arecife. But for me it's now time to head back to the ship because I still have a few things planned on board, even though this is my last day on board. Here we can see some more Christmas decorations, a squirrel on skis, quite an interesting sight at 20 degrees, right next to the ocean with blue skies and sun, but of course very beautiful. And here we are slowly back at the cruise port. We're now heading back on board for the last time, but as I mentioned before, there are still a few things that I have planned. For example, I'm visiting the Fugu restaurant on board today, and we're also gonna meet another ship of the TUI fleet. But when I came back to my cabin, I found this amazing elephant, and I really have to say the housekeeping here on board was fantastic. Every single day they surprised me with another towel, animal, or with other decorations. And now it's time to meet a fleet mate of the Mein Schiff Relax, and a ship that we have seen just a couple of months ago. We are meeting the Mein Schiff 7, Mein Schiff 7. And we've seen a ship tour around this ship just a couple of months ago. I was on that ship just 2 months before this cruise now in September. And now I'm seeing her again, and of course we're gonna listen to the meetup with the original sound. It was very nice because Mein Schiff 7 was taking up our space, so they had to wait until we left the port, going past each other, and that with a very beautiful sunset, perfect evening light. And it was also very interesting, that was not organized by the crew of the ships. Well, that happened by accident because I was listening to some crew members also being surprised about that. But on one of the 2 ships, somebody started to wave by turning on and off the balcony lights, and then more and more passengers on both ships joined in, and in the end both ships were waving at each other with the balcony lights, as you can see here. And also on our ship a lot of passengers did the same, so that was very interesting, and it looked amazing, especially because of the beautiful sunset at the same time and the golden light. So now I let you enjoy the beautiful view with the original sound and some music. After some very nice moments, the Mein Schiff 7 then headed into port, and we turned away from Lanzarote, heading back to Gran Canaria, where my cruise will end tomorrow. The pilot was already almost ready to leave the ship. The pilot boat was here. Here we can see the beautiful sunset one more time. And then the pilot left the ship. We will see that in a second. And when the pilot is leaving the ship, it's a little tradition that you're thanking him for his help with the ship's horn. And our captain wanted to do the same thing. Here you can see the pilot leaving the ship, and now the pilot boat is leaving. And he wanted to wave him goodbye, but our ship's horn got actually stuck. So it took around, I would say, 10 minutes until they managed to get the horn to stop. They tried it again, it was immediately stuck again, so it took a couple of minutes to fix that, but then it worked again. Well, that was quite interesting. I've heard about this, and I've seen videos about this, but it was the first time I experienced it myself. And then I had another highlight. I had a reservation in the Fugu restaurant by famous German TV chef Tim Raue. I cannot show you all of the experience because the videos they show are protected, so it's not allowed to film them, but I show you my food, of course, and I will tell you a bit about the concept. So you have several courses, all planned by Tim Raue, and he will give some explanations about the dishes. Of course, he's not on the ship all the time, but you hear some off comment about the dishes. He explains what ingredients he's using and why he's using and what he's doing with them. You get some video and sound shows that are taking you into the culture of Japan, because it's a Japanese restaurant, and you're gonna get some very special food. There's also a wine pairing, so it is absolutely fantastic. You can also see the menu. Of course, it's in German, and as I mentioned, I cannot show you the videos that they are showing all around the restaurant. The whole restaurant walls only consists of screens, so it is also very impressive to see those videos, and they are really taking you into the Japanese culture, and then you're gonna get to taste the Japanese food. So it is a very, very fantastic experience, and I would recommend joining it. Even though it's in German, it's still worth experiencing this. It's not cheap, but it's worth the money, and it was one of the highlights of the cruise. So I can highly recommend visiting the Fugu restaurant on board. And that's it for the last full day on board. On the next morning, it was unfortunately already time to say goodbye to my cabin, but I was still allowed to stay on the ship for quite a while because I booked my flight with TUI Cruises, so I still had time until lunchtime, so I enjoyed lunch in the osteria before it was then time to leave the ship and head into the terminal. There were a few other ships as well, like the MSC Opera and the Europa of Hapag-Lloyd, and also the AIDA Blue of AIDA Cruises. And I got an assigned time when I should leave the ship and head to the coach, but it did not work that well. It was a bit chaotic. There was a big queue in the terminal building, and a few external crew members were always asking which flight you were on, and then they were forming some lines, but nothing was happening actually. It took quite a while, and I think I left the terminal around 20 minutes later than I was supposed to, but there was no traffic on the way to the airport, and also at the airport everything was going quite fastly, so in the end I still had enough time at the airport. It was not the fault of the TUI Cruises crew, because it was an external crew, probably from the port, but they had big problems organizing the chaos there in the terminal, so for me it was actually not a big problem, but it's always said if that is the last impression of a cruise. But I made it on time, so no problem at all. Here we are at the airport, and here we will continue in the next video. That's it for my fantastic cruise with the Mein Schiff Relax. I hope you enjoyed this video, and here you can see when the next video with the flight back home will be uploaded. And the name of the song, as always, I'd like to say thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.